Well, thanks, guys. It's awesome to be here. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm an alum. I was here from 87 to 91. You heard a little bit of my story. It'll get repeated right up there. You can see that. I'm not going to go through all that stuff. I'm proud of it. You get a chance to see me when I was playing and then what I grew up into. That's my story. We all have a story. You guys are writing a story, individually and collectively as a team. And you'll write that story the rest of your life. But I want you to know me and who I am and what I'm about. Because I'm going to be around this program a little bit, which I'm really excited about. I want you to have the ability and come to talk to me if you have any questions about some stuff. I mean, and I don't mean football. If you want to, that's fine. That's not my job. That's their job, obviously. Coach Wright's job and the staff. But life, anything I can help you with. Because I had that in my career a little bit in the NFL. But I didn't have it in college, and I could have used it in college more so than the NFL. But again, that's my story you see. Very happy about it. I've been on the Chiefs Broadcast Network for 12 years. I call the games next to Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. I learned from Len Dawson, Super Bowl IV MVP, Hall of Famer. Hall of Famer is a broadcaster also. So I've been very fortunate. I'm very aware that I was in the right place at the right time. And I think you have to be aware of that. But the big thing is I took advantage of my opportunity. And that's like something you've got going on right here. So, but I'm gonna get personal. I'm gonna let you feel me from another perspective, which is more of my story, which is tough. And it's this. Well, let's go with that first because that's kind of fun. That first one on the left side is me calling the AFC Championship game. On the right side is with Mitch Holthus, and right after we won the Super Bowl, we realized in the booth, and then that's me holding the Super Bowl trophy. That did not suck. It did. You're okay to laugh. It's all right. That did not suck. I played in Super Bowl 30 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I got this ring. I don't remember the score. Clearly, we lost. But I've been on the winning side of a Super Bowl and the losing side of a Super Bowl, and I guarantee you, winning's a lot more fun, and that was a great memory for me that was made just a couple weeks ago. Seems like forever ago. But I want to tell you a little bit more about me, which is this. That's a little house that I grew up in Rose Hill, Kansas, 3 miles outside of Rose Hill. And I lived on a farm. Like a lot of farms in those 80s, it was kind of tough, and we had a rough time. There's no doubt about it. This is the room that I lived in. It's a 10 by 10 room down in the basement. That closet area where you put clothes, that's what it looked like after we upgraded it. I was proud as hell as that. That was pretty cool. Not the most enticing of things with that. And then that's the laundry room upstairs. And I show this because this is a big part of my life, which is that. At one point in time when I was 16 years old, I was backed into the corner right there and hit in the head repeatedly by my mom. That's my story. Yet, where am I today and what am I doing? And I made peace with that. My mom actually died the second semester of me here at college. And it was this family, these team members that helped me get through it. A guy by the name of John Roderick, who's over at Webb City. When I got back, he always called me Ken. I hated that because I like Kendall anyhow, but he was a senior. He can call me what he wants. And he would talk to me about things. But again, I want you to know me as a person. I don't want you to see this object up here who's got a Super Bowl ring and has done all these different things. That's great, and I'm proud of that. But I want you to know me because some of you in here are thinking, damn, that's kind of rough. And some of you others are thinking, you know what, I can relate to that. I know there's some in here that can relate to that. So I just want you to know me and know that we're on the same level to a degree. So I talked about being backed into that corner. That was a turning point in my life because I backed my mom back up, didn't touch her, told her it would never happen again, and it did not. She had her own problems, and I recognized that, and I don't hold a grudge against her. But that was a turning point in my life because I made a decision that I was not going to let anybody push me around and that I was going to control how I looked at life and how I dealt with things. And that's what I did. What was I going to overcome? Right there, it was kind of a tough parenting situation for me. So my question to you, because this is not about me, this is about you all. And not just in football, in your life and as you go through things. How are you going to react to things? What are you going to have to overcome? Is it going to be dealing with a coach that you don't get along well with? Is it going to be a parent? Is it going to be a home situation? Is it going to be a female? How are you going to approach those things? Are you going to look at it, take a deep breath, and try to figure out as logically as possible how you're going to deal with it? Or how are you going to deal with it when you get up against somebody who's clearly bigger than you and maybe more skilled than you? And what are you going to do? Are you going to let that back you down? Or are you going to go after them? I'll tell you a quick story. When we played Arkansas State my sophomore year, we just become into NCAA Division II. We got asked to go down and play Arkansas State. They were Division I AA. They needed somebody to play on homecoming. Why not beat up on Pittsburgh State? We got $50,000 to go there and play. We went there, we kicked their ass, and we came back home with the money. Now, I remember playing that game, and I was playing against a guy that I'd never played against somebody this big before. And I was a sophomore. I don't know what he was. I just know that he was big and he was better than me. But I remember telling my running back, Ronald Moore, we probably know that name, or if you don't, you should. He's an icon here, played in the NFL also. I always say Ronald Moore is the reason I thought I could block in college. But I remember talking to Ronald and said, listen, this is what you're going to get from me. I can give you a stalemate. You just need to know on ride 34, I can give you a stalemate, and then you're going to have to cut off of it because this guy is a bitch wolf. And I was just being honest, and it was in the heat of battle. We won that game. Did me telling him that, did that win the game? I don't know. But I was being honest with myself and figuring out what I had to overcome and how I was going to do it, and I was letting others be a part of it. And he could tell you that story also. I think he remembers it as well. And ultimately, this is big. Your belief in what you're doing and what you want to accomplish is the only limiting factor. I played in the NFL for 15 years, 218 straight games. I was considered the best long snapper at one point in time in the NFL for about 4 or 5 years, so effectively the best at my position in the world. But I came from a small Division II school. I wasn't supposed to be there. You know, I got drafted in the 11th round. We all know that's a free agent these days. I wasn't supposed to be there. Guys, it never occurred to me that I would fail. It never occurred to me that I would fail. I heard some of those things you talked about, competing, always competing. It never occurred to me that I would fail. If you can get that in your mindset that you are not going to fail, you're either going to be successful or you're going to learn and you're going to get better. If you can do that, you've got a chance. And this is a great place to have it. Now, you know, we talk about this. I think of that as what you're doing is a present. You're going straight across. That is the present. That's where we are right now. But you think about where you want to go. You want to go on that upward level. And it's that area right in there that you've got to deal with each and every day. You've got to close the gap. How are you going to get better on a daily basis? For me, when I was snapping in the NFL, people knew that when I came up there, I was going to say, okay, who wants to get better today? I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of snaps I took in the NFL while I was practicing, because I believed you could never rep something too much and try to be proficient at it. And that's why I got to the level I was. Now, if you're wondering, well, all you did was long snap. Well, back in the day, you know, I weighed 310 pounds. I'm 250 now, so I took some weight off. I was an offensive lineman. I didn't learn to long snap, guys, until my 3rd year in college. And that was because a coach around the program saw me screwing around, because I was curious how the ball rolled out of the fingers, so I was messing around. And they realized I could snap better than anybody on the team. I didn't like it. I didn't want to run down. I'm an offensive lineman. I see you offensive linemen. I know you don't want to run down the field. I didn't either, until they told me I could make a living at it and it was going to help the team. And all of a sudden, my mindset changed. So again, what are you doing on a daily basis? Right now, you're building a team. Talk about the weight room and getting in there. You know, I came to Pittsburgh State as 225-pound tight end. I promptly ate my way into offensive line in the first semester, because I went from 225 to 255 in a semester. It wasn't pretty, trust me, but I'd never had that much food before. See, besides being backed into that corner, I didn't have all the food I need every day. It is what it is. It made me who I am, and I'm sure it's made you who you are in anything that you've dealt with from an adversarial side of things. But again, what can you do on a daily basis for yourself and for others to help close that gap, to get where you guys want to go? You know, you guys are coming off a season that wasn't where you want to be, and now there's some change. You know, when I came here, this program was rolling. I was here 5 years. I redshirted. I practiced after one loss my entire career. The first 4 seasons, we were undefeated, and we lost in the playoffs, so I didn't practice. The fifth year, we lost our second game of the season because our quarterback went out on the second play of the game, and we had a true freshman, and we still only lost by a point, I think. So I practiced after that loss, and then we won the national championship. And guys, the national championship, being around a Super Bowl, it's the goal that you want to get to. Your goal should be to win every game, and that's great. And when you get there and you get that ring or whatever, it's awesome. But I'm going to tell you right now, while it will be neat when you do it, and you guys will do it, trust me, you will. What you will remember is days like this, and when you go into the locker room or when you go into the weight room and you're battling with those guys, the blood, sweat, and tears. I've played for a lot of good coaches. Coach Ditka, Coach Vermeil, Coach Cower, Coach Mora, Herm. You know, that's the one thing they talk about is you get to a certain point, but it's the blood, sweat, and tears while you're getting there. It's that journey that makes it all worthwhile. That's what I remember. People always ask me, what I miss about football. And I joke with them. I say, naturally, I miss the paychecks, right? You certainly miss that. But I miss the camaraderie. I miss the locker room. The fact I played football until I was 38 years old, and it was awesome. I was still climbing up on ice machines when people were coming around and jumping on them afterwards, a 38-year-old grown man, except I wasn't grown in my mind, just in my age. And I feel very lucky for that. But again, each and every day, I was trying to close that gap and get better. I would snap for hours on end to try to get best. And then let's be honest, I was a backup lineman. On my best day in the NFL, I might have been an average offensive lineman. But I found a skill that some coaches helped develop or helped see in me, and I developed it to the best of my ability. If you take coaching and you work at it the best you can, and you're coachable, you've got a chance. And I'm not just talking about football, guys. I'm talking about life in general. Because the odds are you won't play in the NFL. But also the odds are you wouldn't be here also. The odds are I wouldn't be in the NFL. Just because I say that is not me being negative. I'm just telling you what the odds are. Every player in the NFL, every player in college football, the odds are they wouldn't play. Because when you look at the numbers, they're so small. You're a very elite group. Not only playing football, then being here at Pittsburgh State. You've got some good things going on here. And I'm proud to be a part of it. I hope you are too. So, again, we're talking about closing the gap. You've got to deal with it. How are you going to deal with failure? When things don't go that way, when something happens, how are you going to deal with that? Well, ultimately, I really kind of misspoke because I don't believe in failure unless you quit. If it doesn't work out that way and you don't quit, then it's just a learning opportunity. And that's how I've always looked at it. I'm going to tell you right now, it wasn't so much in college, but in the NFL, when I was getting into those one-on-one pass drills, I got embarrassed, and it sucked. But I got right back up, and I was ready to go again until I got better and better. If you have that attitude, you have a chance in anything in life. Again, not just football. I know that's what we're talking about right now, but I'm telling you, this is all going to translate over. And then I think even maybe more importantly, how are you going to deal with success? When you guys win that national championship, whenever that comes, when you win the league championship, how are you going to deal with success? Have you arrived? Are you going to rest on your accolades? Or are you going to keep going? You know, for me, making it in the NFL that first year, I was pretty happy with myself. That was my goal when I came to Pittsburgh State University. Granted, I did not share it with a lot of people because they probably would have laughed me out of the building. I didn't care. It was my dream, not theirs. But the fact is, I made the team that first year, and now all of a sudden, I was dealing with on the other end of what I dealt with the year before, which was I had to defend and keep a job that somebody else wanted each and every year. And I did that for 15 years. And then I chose to quit. I had had enough. And honestly, I was starting to crack because I needed some help with some other stuff. But that's a story for another day. But literally, I was asked to continue to play, and I said, you know what, thank you, but 15 years is enough, and I think I'm done. And the Chiefs, their mouths were open, quite honestly, because I knew there was other things besides football, because I'd been doing it a long time. But again, how you deal with the success. I dealt with the success by always trying to get better and push people. Let's be honest. With the exception of the punter and the kicker on the team, I was the worst athlete. I was still a pretty decent athlete, but these were some world-class people. So what did I do? I trained my ass off in the off-season, and I pushed people to get better who maybe wouldn't have because they didn't want to get beat by the long snapper, backup offensive lineman. I found a way to emotionally lead a team, even though I was down maybe the pedestal a little bit on the pecking order. You know, in the NFL, they have something called the NFL Players Association, and they elect 2 people to represent the team when they go to meetings to deal with the CBA, all the business side of stuff. I was that elected official 10 of my 15 years, and it was because of one reason, because I dealt with failure the right way. I didn't get too full of myself, but ultimately they knew I cared about them as teammates, and I would do anything I could do to help them. And this was off the football field for the most part. But again, I'm leaning at this. Again, how are you going to be as a teammate? How are you going to deal with it success-wise, failure-wise, individually, and collectively? So now, I've talked about that a little bit, my story, probably a little bit too much. So I want to take you into the Chiefs because I'm fortunate. I'm one of the 5 people that get to ride on the team plane press-wise. We're the only press, Chiefs Radio Network, and so I'm on every team plane and everything going on. And so I form a relationship with these guys a little bit. And the one guy, I don't think I have to tell you who that is Patrick Mahomes. And this guy, he's pretty impressive. You know, I just had there, I've got up there, how do you deal with success or failure? Go back 2 years ago, his second year, but first year starting. Throws 50 TDs. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's the MVP. But he loses in overtime to New England. We all know about that game, and certainly we can agree. Really wasn't on him. But the fact is, he's a team player. In his mind, it was on him. He had a lot of success because of the MVP and what he did. And in his mind, he had true failure because they didn't get to the Super Bowl. And that's what he wanted to do. So I think it's interesting. I was fortunate enough to be on a private plane with him coming back from Springfield to Kansas City. And he dropped Mitch Holthus and myself off. And then he went on to Burbank to do a photo shoot for Madden 20, which is kind of crazy, kind of surreal when you think about it. But I was talking with his agent. And he was going to be in LA for a week. And he had to agree, they had to ask him because he obviously had to agree to it. You know, he's getting all these offers to do these endorsements and everything. And what he said to his agent, I think is beautiful, which he said, I will do it. I will go there for a week on one condition and one condition only. I get 4 hours a day to work out every day. If I don't get 4 hours a day to work out, I don't go. I'm going to tell you right now, that's pretty cool, I think. This is a guy who's a superstar who knows what's butter in the bread. He knows what's going to keep him there and what got him there. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. He was dealing with the success and still working hard, and he was dealing with failure also because he was working. I mean, everybody asked his goals and everything was going on. The only thing he would say basically was, it's our goal to win the Super Bowl. And at the AFC Championship game, after it was done this year, they were trying to get him up on the stage. He would not go until Kelsey and Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, went up there with him. He said, I will not go up there unless they're with me. This is a team player through and through, top to bottom, left to right. And I think there's something you can glean from that and you can learn from it. Now, the other guy that I want to tell you just a little bit about also is a little bit more of a wild child. I don't know if you can see that, but that's Travis Kelce. That's after the Super Bowl. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but he and I have gotten kind of close. And you know, when I came in there, he gave me a great big hug. And that was after he'd come off the field, had his pads on. And I came in back later, and he was like that. And who doesn't want a picture with somebody who's dressed like that, ready to go to the Super Bowl party? But Travis Kelce is an interesting individual because he came in, you know, as I think a third-round pick. And Coach Reed had coached his brother, Jason Kelce, an all-pro center at Philadelphia. And Kelce, he made some big mistakes in college. One took him out of one full year of playing football. And he'll openly talk about it. He was a little bit of a knucklehead. And I've watched this guy in 7 years go from somebody who was a little bit immature, got hurt his rookie year, wasn't able to live up to potential, to really becoming what I think is the most complete tight end in the game. You can make a case certainly for Kittle. I understand that. But this is a guy that leads by example. And again, back to that AFC Championship game, I went over there to interview him, and I talked about it because I think that's the game that he had 3 touchdown passes that he caught, if I remember right. But he had a big game, and he acknowledged it. He goes, it doesn't matter. He goes, this isn't our goal. Winning the AFC Championship game we had to get there, but it's not our goal. Our goal is to win the Super Bowl. So we've got to get ready. We can enjoy it tonight a little bit, but then it's time to go. And I think that says something. And I think you can learn from that as well, which is, you know what? The main thing's the main thing, whatever it may be for you all. I know from my standpoint, when we came here each year as a player, my 5 years, we had the goals we set, and it was to win every game. It was to win the league championship, and it was to win the national championship. And we accomplished a lot of those, and finally we got that one my senior year. Goals push us, but ultimately we have to push ourselves. We have to mind the gap. We have to be willing to go the extra mile, 2 miles, whatever it is. Do the extra work in the weight room, in the classroom. Make sure we're eligible, whatever it is. I was no brain. I wasn't an idiot. I was somewhere in between, but I had to work at it, and that's okay. And I came from an environment which was not the greatest. Some of you can't imagine it. Some of you are thinking, you know what, that's bad, but you ought to hear what I've got to say. I get that. I've been around that in the NFL, so I get that, and I can appreciate that for sure. Again, that's my story right up there. But, and it won't be up there long. This next picture, you've got to remember, this next picture is what accomplished all that. I understand it's not pretty. I thought I was a badass back then. That's the combine. I was a senior. So I'd come out of Pittsburgh State. I'd been an All-American. I thought I had it going on. I was 273 pounds. You couldn't see it. You know, they didn't even take the H off of Pittsburgh. They didn't know where I was from. I was the first long snapper to go to the combine. I came out of that combine rated the best long snapper in the nation of all levels, not just Division II. But again, I told you my story, but it's to you. What is your story? And do you embrace it? Or do you try to brush it aside? And I say that because you've got to embrace it in some sort of manner. And then as teammates, you've got to help each other. Take the time to learn your other teammates' story to the degree that they'll allow you. Team is family. This is a family in here. Some of the best relationships you will ever have in your life will come out of this. Would you agree, Josh? You got some good friends from this? Yes, and I could ask everybody in here. My best friends that I've got, one was a trainer here. Another one was the center that played next to me. I know you know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just reminding you of something. What is your story? And then this, what are you telling yourself? Because your story evolves of all the self-talk. We have about 50,000 thoughts in our head a day. It's that self-talk, those auto thoughts that just happen. And the fact is, if you're telling yourself you're good or you're telling yourself you're bad, you're right either way. You know, for me, I have a mantra that I say all the time to myself, which is, I matter, I make a difference, and I am enough. I matter, I make a difference, I am enough. And I would tell you guys, you matter. You make a difference and you are enough. If you believe you make a difference, you will win. If you exert the will, if you embarrass the person across from you on the field because it's allowed, the feeling you will get is awesome. And while it will be a win, it's not about that. It's about you doing your best and gaining the respect of yourself, and then gaining respect from your teammates, and then gaining respect from that person across from you. And when you do that, you walk out and you know you did your best. There's nothing more you can do. If you give your best all the time, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't, I promise you. Now I'm going to tell you, I get into this because this was the one thing for me. We had our Friday night meetings, and when I heard about teams dissing us and saying we were overrated or whatever, I took that personally. And I wanted to go out there and I wanted to annihilate my teammate, or not my teammate, the person across from me each and every time. Again, what are you telling yourself that you make a difference and the confidence you have, and then how are you dealing with it? And then finally, what will you write from this day forward? You get a choice. That's one thing, I have a strong Christian faith. I believe God gives us the power of free will and choice. And you have the free will and choice to do things the way you want to do them each and every day. And if it's the right choice, then you're going to get better. If not, then you're going to have an issue. Choices, decisions, consequences. You've got a choice. And once you make that choice, that's the decision. And then with that comes the consequence. If you do good things, you work hard, those consequences are good. Consequences aren't bad. They can be bad, but they can be really, really good as well with that. So, I wanted to share with you from my heart what I feel. I'm proud to be a gorilla. I've sat there in those seats in a different room, obviously. This, if you don't know, most of you probably know this used to be a weight room. This is the weight room that I worked out in. So this is different for me, but this is cool. I feel a sense of pride on so many different levels because I work for the president. I help raise funds and plan everything that you see here. From this to the meeting rooms upstairs and the offices to the plaster center. And I take immense pride in that. But I take immense pride in it because it's made facilities better for guys like yourself. And so with that, I would say this. Thank you for your attention. I saw you looking at me. I saw you nodding. That shows you you're coachable. It lets people know that you're listening. I appreciate that because I think what I have to say is important. But I appreciate you validating it with me. And I would say this, like I said, I played until I was 38 years old. I've been there. I've sat in your seat. I get it. I'm always available. My website is kendallgammon.com. If you go on there, you can email me and you will get a response within 24 hours and you'll get my cell number. How I do this, I speak all over the country. And it's for one reason I give all that out, because I want to be there to help people if they need it, or if they just want to bounce something off, or if you have questions about anything, I'm available for that. Now, as far as football goes, no, that's your coaches. I'm not a coach and whatever, but I want to help you with the mental side of things, or how you deal with stuff, or you know what, if you just need to talk. So with that, again, I thank you. And Coach said, you said I could open up for a few questions. Sure. And I hope some of you guys will speak up, but I'd love to answer any questions you have about anything, either my life or what I've done in the NFL or anything else that maybe has spurred some interest. And while I understand that long snapping is wildly interesting, I understand if it's not going to be a long snapping question. Anybody think of anything? Yes, sir.
Mr. Gammon, so could you talk about tips for developing leadership and how to get people out of their comfort zone to be willing to lead and show vulnerability?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's tough because it's the chicken or the egg a little bit, because you lead by getting out of your comfort zone sometimes, and sometimes somebody pushing you out of your comfort zone forces you to lead. But, I think ultimately, you've just got to take that first step and have faith that this is the right thing to do. You've got to do your research, and sometimes you've got to go out on faith and say, you know what, I just feel it. This is what I want to do. I distinctly remember, even as I joked about it a little bit, being a long snapper in the NFL and a backup offensive lineman, but I can remember in Super Bowl 30, I can remember coming into the huddle after we didn't make it. We're in the red zone and we didn't make a touchdown. We're going to have to make a field goal. And it was a tight game at that point in time. And I walk in and I could see the offensive linemen were kind of down. I was like, guys, get your head up. This is not getting 3 instead of 7. This is getting 3 instead of 0, and this is important. And we went up there, we kicked the field goal, and maybe it would have been fine no matter what. But I chose to step up and say something audibly and try to get their mind back in the game. Because the minute you let the last snap affect your next snap is the minute that you've got issues going on. One snap and clear. That is my mantra. It's been the mantra to my boys. It's been the mantra to myself. One snap and clear. The past cannot affect the future. You can remember the past, but the future is what you're doing with it now, or rather the present. But that's kind of a long answer. I diverge sometimes, but that's what I would say with that. Anybody else think of anything? No, not even you, Will?
How's Blaze doing?
Blaze is doing well. Will played with my son, Blaze Gammon. Blaze just finished his senior year at K-State as a tight end. He makes me look tiny, so he's doing well. He's doing his internship in Kansas City and going about his business. Yes, sir.
Mr. Gammon, as you were in the league, what was the characteristics like around you in the locker room? What were you guys around you doing to try to make you compete more at a higher level? Like, you already had that mindset coming out of college, but what pushed you even further with all those star athletes?
You know what? I think the main thing you said at the end was the star athletes. Watching star athletes who were future Hall of Famers that were teammates of mine, how hard they worked. You know, when I first went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think you guys are old, you know, but Rod Woodson was a defensive back. Rod's one of the most amazing athletes I've ever been around. I remember being in that locker room and thinking, okay, this is Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other, because that is one toned athlete, and it was amazing. But I watched him work his ass off day in and day out. And we had a center. I played behind him because I was a center also, Dermontti Dawson. He's in the NFL Hall of Fame. And I watched how hard he worked. But I also took note of the fact that physically, athletically, I couldn't do the things he could do. So I had to figure out a way to work hard to try to at least be a decent backup and do the things, because they built the offense around his athletic abilities, and I simply didn't have those. And it came to working as hard as I could and getting the most out of me. And then the best example is Tony Gonzalez. I think we all know Tony Gonzalez went into the Hall of Fame here recently. For whatever reason, Tony and I got along really well. I was a tight end my last few years when I dropped down to this weight, just as a backup. Obviously, I couldn't do what he could do. But Tony was always one of the first guys on the field and almost always the last guy off the field. And he was always taking balls off the jugs machine to catch. And then I still remember, him doing this. And he was always working on his cutting, because he knew his cutting and change of direction was going to help him get open. He was fast, but he wasn't the fastest. He had great hands. But the thing is, he took the skills he had and he took them to the highest level. And that's something I'll always remember. That guy, he worked hard, and he was a decent human being. That's the other thing, too. I have not been I can't think of a Pro Bowler and actually nor a Hall of Famer, and I think I've played with 8 or 9 Hall of Famers that were just jerks. Generally, they're pretty darn good people. They've got a good demeanor, and they work their ass off. Will Shields up in Kansas City, this guy, unbelievable. But he as good a player he is, he's a better person. I loved it when I heard about some of the service stuff you're doing in the community. That's awesome, giving back. I think we as human beings, altruistic, we want to help. We're pack animals. We want to help people. And I think when we learn that and it's pushed and we're forced to get outside of our comfort zone a little bit, that allows us to really go out and learn some new things. But as far as the players and what they did, it was just always doing that extra. And that's one thing that's never going to change. There is no button to push or pill to take for hard work. It's simply tough, for sure.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
You're highly successful, obviously, been a part of a lot of great things. Day in and day out, what motivated you to be the best you could be? You know, that leadership is hard these days because it gets made fun of, but what made you keep being what you wanted to be?
I think I wanted to be the best me I could be. That was part of it. I was always trying to push myself. But I really think the main thing was, Josh, and it's a great question, I didn't want to let my teammates down. This is a collective game. And I knew I held the fate of my team in my hands each and every time, because generally there was points that could be scored or not scored, or on punts, if it's blocked or whatever, I'd do something. So I wanted to be the best. And I did not want to let my teammates down. And I felt like, I feel like that was the main motivating factor. I mean, you work with guys day in and day out, and you put those hours in the weight room and you run. It's not fun. You can make it fun if you have the intentional mindset to say, okay, I'm going to look at this a different way, that I'm blessed and I have a chance to do this, because there's a lot of people that don't. But ultimately, it was about the respect for myself and my teammates that made me want to work as hard as possible. And I'm going to tell, even to this day, you guys can't understand this yet because you're still here. But most of you, it will last for quite a while. For me, I played so long. When it gets to summertime and it's like 100 degrees in Kansas City, for whatever reason, it's innate now. I want to go out and run in the heat, even at 51 years old. I realize I look a lot older than that, but 51 years old, because it helps me remember where I came from and what I used to do, which was push my body to the maximum and get as much as I could get out of it. And I think I did throughout my career. Like I said, I played 15 years. Less than 80 people in the history of this planet have played that long. I'm very proud of it. And it didn't happen by accident. I was very fortunate to be in the right place in the right time. But like I said earlier on, I took advantage of my opportunity. One more, and I know you guys will. Oh, no, I'll take more than one if you'll do it. Yes, sir. Then we'll get to you.
Throughout your years in college and NFL, did you have a lot of family support?
Hey, he asked, did I have a lot of family support? Not really. So my mother died in February of my second semester. And I remember coming back from Wichita, and it's about a 2.5-hour trip if you happen to 245, and it's one of the most boring trips ever. It took me about 5 or 6 hours. I got lost, and I was just completely gone. My dad worked in Florida. He and my mom had left when I went to college. So literally, through my whole career, and especially my freshman year, when I went to anywhere, whatever, I took everything in my car, and just where I ended up is where I ended up. And if it was a friend's house on the floor, if it was in a parking lot, in the car, sleeping, whatever it was. So they loved me. We just didn't have a lot. And my dad was working hard, but he was down in Florida doing that, so I had no home base. They sold the house and went down there, and of course I couldn't travel down there for fun. So I had support they tried to come to some games, far and few between. But as far as financial support and whatnot, none. And then emotional support, almost non-existent. Like I said, I was backed into that corner and hitting the head repeatedly by my mom. We can all agree that's not supposed to happen. I will say this also, because I generally talk about this which is when I was 16, not too long after that happened, I also had a gun in my hands thinking was this the way to figure things out? And I talk openly about it because it's not 6 degrees of separation in terms of suicide. It's 1 degree. Everybody in here knows something about somebody or has dealt with it in some way, I believe, and that's what I found out. So not a great support system. So this was my family. John Roderick, the head coach over at Webb City, 2 years older than me. For whatever reason, he kind of took me under his wing. And so the simple answer is no. They loved me. We just didn't have that ability. So, but that's a great question, man. Yes, sir.
When faced with adversity in your career, like you said, being underrated and stuff like that, what kept you motivated without losing the love of the game?
Without, you know what? I think it was what I remember the most about Pitt State, my years at Pitt State, and this offensive line was, and we were good. And we were a little bit cocky, and I'm okay with that. We were a little bit brash. We would come off on the sideline, and I don't think you want to do this, guys, now, but we came off on the sideline, and we would do a little dance after we scored touchdowns by ourselves and not in front of the other team or whatever. But I just remember that camaraderie, and what kept me going was just the joy of accomplishing something with all these guys that I've become so close with. And I was just fortunate that I had that, I think, maybe in the NFL also. When I was with the Steelers on Thursdays after practice, our last padded practice, we would go to a bar and have a beer and play cribbage. Back in the day, that's what we did. You probably don't even know what that is now, some of you. But we'd go there just to bond as a team. And then on Friday, you would come in and you see some guys that weren't there. We're like, hey, what's up, dude? This is what we do. I mean, we're trying to get back. my third year in the NFL, we went to the AFC Championship game, and we missed a chance to go to the Super Bowl on the last play of the game. So we were trying to get back there the next play, and it was forming a team, family atmosphere of doing things together. And I think that's what really drove me and what I love and what I remember most about football. I mean, was being around a team and being able to help them. People ask me a lot, what's my number one accomplishment in football? What did I do that I remember the most? And I bet my house nobody could guess what it was, which was my senior year. I think we're 1-1 or 2-1. And we're used to being rated number one all the time, and of course we're not now. And for whatever reason, this day here at Carney Smith Stadium, Missouri Rolla had our number, and it was tied 6-6. And I had been put on the field goal block team the year before, so I've been doing it for that year, and I've been doing it this year also, and never got in anything. And I literally blocked a field goal that helped preserve a 6-6 tie. And I don't know what our lot in the playoffs would have been had we lost. That is my proudest moment ever in football, because I did something to help the team that I know made a difference. Not that my other stuff didn't, but that's just one thing. And I guess what I'm getting at is just my love for my teammates and the collective idea of accomplishing something together and being great. I think that's what drove me day in, day out. It's a great question also. Any others if we've got time? Yes, sir.
How do you mentally push yourself past the limits that you think that you can't go no further, and that's weight room wise, football field wise,
It's a mindset. It's nothing. If you couldn't hear him, he said, how do you push yourself past that point? And it's a great question, and that's how you get better, which is you got to understand no matter where you get to, there's always more. There always is. I mean, it's just like our mind. We use about 20% of it. There's always more to get there. Your body can always can do more, I believe, but it starts with a mindset. You telling yourself, no, I'm going to do one more. And it's not easy, and it's a mental thing, but it's an intentional focus of you going in with the intentional goal of I'm going to attack this a certain way. If you go in and you're intrepid, then I think those thoughts start to creep in. Again, as I said earlier, it never occurred to me that I would fail. A lot of other people thought I would fail, and I heard that, and I knew I was against the odds, but in my mind, it never occurred to me. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people appreciated about me, and I think that's one thing they appreciated about me when I was speaking the night before the games was I got pretty heated. I mean, I've been given a lot of awards in my life and a lot of stuff, and I'm proud of them. That's great, and I think it's cool. But they're just stuff. But the one thing that I'm the most proud of, and it's the one award, it's the one award that I didn't even know it existed, was when I was voted most inspirational on the team my senior year. And it was because I cared and that I wanted to make a difference. And again, all of that in my mind is intentional focus, how you choose to look at something. Whether you think you're going to succeed or whether you think you're going to fail, you're right. Either way, what you think is what's going to happen, and you manifest it in your thoughts. I meditate daily, probably anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, and it's made all the difference in the world. Because my life has not been perfect. I told you about those things. Unfortunately, I had a marriage dissolve after 24 years, and a lot of it was on me. And a lot of it had to do with my childhood and some issues I had to deal with, but it was still on me. It was still my issues. But again, how I chose to deal with it was that mindset that I have. And I'm going to tell you, that's the number one thing. You guys are going to play against people, individually maybe, that may be better than you. There's always somebody better. But that has nothing to do with whether you're going to win the war or not. That's mental inside. That's you expecting to win, I believe. And if you expect that you can do more, then I think you can. And sometimes it doesn't manifest itself right away. But eventually, if you keep pounding the stone, if you keep going after it, eventually it cracks. I mean, right now, you guys, what you're doing in the weight room, you're laying the foundation. You don't start to see the walls and everything come up until you get to game days. And that's when it's fun. But you're building the team right now. I think the team gets coached during the season. You don't have time to build them during the season. You got to coach and get ready. This is where you build. This is where you come together. This is where you're intentional about your actions and what you want to do. Hopefully that answered it. Obviously, I get a little bit fired up. Was there any others?
Kendall,
Yes, sir.
from your perspective, what got the Chiefs over the hump, so to speak, from a culture standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. How did the Chiefs go from losing the AFC Championship game in overtime, the Patriots, to what they did this year? The first and foremost was the locker room changed a little bit. There were no cancers in the locker room. They added Tyrann Mathieu. I defy you to find a finer individual than Tyrann Mathieu. This dude, I went and did an appearance and juggled at the Pediatric Cancer Ward for the University of Kansas Medical Systems, and he happened to be there as well. And so I got to know him a little bit, and this is a solid person. And you know what? He's one of the best safeties in the league. And he's not even close to being physically one of the best safeties in the league. But his mental approach and how he looks at things on the football field is great. But off the field and in the locker room, they're tight. That's one guy. I'm trying to think. I think Patrick Mahomes stepping up along with some other guys and leading and understanding that they were not going to allow the team to fail. And I think the collection of guys doing that, I think is huge. There's one other guy they signed this year that I thought was integral, but I'm losing it right now. But I think really it was just the constant reminder also of you guys, you remember how we felt last year when we didn't get it done. And we want you to imagine how it would feel when we do get it done. And that's what they did this year. And the fact is, there were superstars on the team performance-wise, but as far as person to person and in the locker room and how they deal with it, everybody was equal. And there was no ego. And that's huge. You know, in their locker room, they have a basketball goal. I don't think it'll be there much longer unless they change a few things. But you know, it's interesting because you see them shooting and playing, and Patrick Mahomes is right in there with everybody, you know, going around and moving around and having fun. He's a bona fide superstar. I mean, he could be a jerk if he wanted and get away with it, and he's everything but that. I mean, the dude is on it. He is a leader, top to bottom, left to right. And I think it's just that leadership. And then I would say this is Andy Reid, head coach, and what he's done. I think he did a fine job of assembling them, getting rid of a few guys that maybe needed to go and bringing some guys in. And I guess the one thing I actually forgot to talk about, which I think is very important, is if you paid attention during Super Bowl week or even the AFC Championship game when they're saying what it would mean to get to the Super Bowl or what would it mean to win the Super Bowl, if you asked Patrick, he was going to talk about his teammates and the fact that he wanted to win it for Andy Reid. If you asked the other teammates, they would say, well, we would like to see Pat get back, or they would defer to somebody else. If you ask Coach Reid, he goes, you know, I just love to see it for my assistant coaches and these guys that worked so hard last year. Never once did anybody talk about how it would feel for them. It was always about everybody else. It was we versus me. And when you're more concerned about the collective good of everybody around you as opposed to yourself, that's when I think beautiful things happen. And I think that was the big thing, Coach, this year was there was nothing selfish about them. And then I think also is, you know, how many people we got in this team? Or 60, 70, 80, whatever it may be. You know, only 11 start on offense and 11 start on defense. So those others guys, you know, you're reserves. You're on the depth chart. But the fact is, at some point in time, you're going to have to step up and play. And I think the one thing that I saw with the Chiefs this year was the injuries we had this year were amazing. We never had all our wide receivers playing at the same time until I want to say week 11 or 12. We had other people stepping up. At one point in time in the offensive line, we only had 2 of the starting 5 players on the offensive line. You had guys that were not starters at the beginning of the year stepping up and filling in and performing at a level that Coach Reid expected them to perform at, and I think that's a huge deal. You know, that's on you as a coach and you as a coaching staff, getting these guys to be ready, and that's you guys accepting what they do, coaching you to get ready. You know, I didn't start my freshman year in college, and that really bothered me. I mean, it shouldn't have. I mean, you want a good team to where there's people in front of you. Then I started the rest of the years. But the fact is, I guarantee you, I know in my 4 years that I never big-timed anybody. I never did. I learned their name, and I knew a lot about them because I cared, because I'd been in that position as well. And I just really think that's what you saw from the team collectively. And then, you know, as a head coach, Andy Reid, and how he is. This is one good dude, one just solid individual. And, you know, a lot of people, I don't know, Andy's just, he's one of the best. Any others? No? Well, guys, like I said, you know how to get a hold of me, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your attention. If there's anything I can do for you ever, I'll do my best. And good luck this year. Work hard. Close the gap, man. Take care. Thanks.